In the tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the tunnel. You're listening to In the Tunnel.
Hello and welcome to In the Tunnel, episode number 104. Uh, yeah, we're gonna step right into it. So, first things first, we want to talk about the NHL, correct?
Yeah,
We
uh,
have,
the season has started. We're gonna jump into what's going on, which part of it doesn't make any sense between whose team is actually doing better between Sean and my team. Uh, Mostly because I did some statistical research that basically says that your season start is a fluke, but
hey, it's a fun fluke.
yeah, enjoy while it lasts. That's the mantra for New York sports this year.
Hey, and I mean, these are slightly out of date because Devils won last night.
Well,
Uh,
my statistical research isn't out of date because it says of like 20 minutes ago.
fair enough. Um, yeah. I mean, aside from the Devils, the big can of worms in the room, right now the Metro is the Devils, Carolina, then the Rangers and Islanders, I think. Uh,
It always feels good to be below the Islanders, who have built themselves on having no offense, despite the fact that I don't believe Barry Trotz is there anymore.
no, and the Islanders are actually scoring pretty well, I think.
Yeah, that's not helping. It really isn't.
Yeah. And then obviously Washington, Philadelphia, you are only above Columbus.
I mean, I expected to be above Columbus. The real thing was, did I expect to be only above Columbus? And we'll talk state of the Penguins in a second here, because, you know, uh, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
talk that in a second. But we have Boston. Let's go through. We have what, four teams per division that would make the playoffs. We have Boston,
Yeah, so
Buffalo, Tampa Bay, and Toronto in the Atlantic.
right now it's actually so it's technically 3 and 2, right? So three, 3 and 2 wild cards. But yes, I think it does
But yeah,
work out to 4 teams currently.
I mean, yeah, that basically is normally how it works.
Yeah.
Then in the West we have Dallas, Winnipeg, which is a kind of a shocker, I guess, because
Yep.
I don't know what they're building off of up there. Minnesota and Chicago. And if you're Chicago, you gotta stop winning. This is not the year for you to do that.
Yep.
You already are just smacking the cap wall. Um, and then in the Pacific, you have Vegas, which I don't think we saw that coming, given how they say goodbye to their players who leave the team the same way that a casino says goodbye to you as you go to the airport.
Yeah.
Uh, then you have, who else is there? I'm having some trouble
Seattle
reading it.
and
Seattle
Los Angeles.
and
Vegas,
Edmonton.
Edmonton, Seattle, and Los Angeles.
So I mean, what's your biggest surprise here? And I mean your best surprise. I don't mean
The
your
fact
bad
that
surprise.
Seattle is like
Year
doing pretty
year two
good.
jump.
Last night's game they had that's not in these standings, they did pretty good. Vegas, I wouldn't say Vegas is a surprise. I do think they get off to hotter starts. Uh,
Well, my thing with Vegas is, didn't they kind of make a lot of moves over the offseason that kind of suggested that they were about to start over?
no, I think it was more of, their hot start and how they got players catching up with them.
Okay.
But at the same time, like they did get Eichel, right?
Okay, yeah,
I,
that's
I
true.
I don't think you can get Eichel and not be at least decent.
See, but and this has very little to do with actual gameplay, but what told me that they probably were in a rebuild was when I was uh, going through videos yesterday on Facebook, I want to say, and they showed up with Lil Jon trying to teach offensive zone mentality based on shots, 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 shots. Um, so it was Jack Eichel and a group of otherwise probably unknown
Yeah.
Vegas Knights all having to answer Lil Jon on what to do once you get past the blue line.
Great.
That normally is the kind of PR thing that you do when
Yeah.
you expect nothing.
But at the same time, like with how different the entry into the league was for Vegas and Seattle, I'm actually surprised that Seattle is putting up as good of a showing as they are.
Well, and that might not last. I mean, there's plenty of
I mean,
instances in pro sports
the
where
problem is, or at least just because of the difference, right, in how the draft works, you literally have a team like in Vegas, they were literally given everything to
correct,
do what they wanted. In
correct, but
Seattle,
they
it was
also
more they were at the bottom of the barrel already. Now, I'm not saying that they have a legit shot at making the playoffs, I think, and it's not like a fringe chance. I think they could make it. I mean, they're not going to win the division, I don't think,
now
but
correct me if I'm wrong though. Did Vegas hold on to any like really high picks
no.
when they did? They traded away their picks
I thought
for
they
to build a
kept
roster.
their well,
Maybe the draft class itself for their first rounder
yeah,
wasn't very good.
wasn't very good.
Whereas Seattle, like past year, the top five was supposed to be pretty damn good.
But also, like, did you see how the draft went?
All
the
I know is the
the
guy
guy who
who
was
was
supposed to go
supposed
number
to
one
go
went
one,
four,
three, three or four.
3 or 4 to Seattle, actually, right? I'm pretty sure.
Right, which, that's what I mean when I say top five heavy is that when your number one consensus guy can go down to three or four, that normally means that the talent pool surrounding it, because it's not like baseball where
Well, I mean,
there's a pool allotted.
that's true to a sense, but like if you looked at the picks before him, in reality, because I think he went 4 to Seattle because I think the Flyers were above him. Um,
Okay?
but like the Devils were never gonna pick a forward. It was just not gonna happen. So, or at least definitely not a center. So the second pick wasn't gonna pick him. So once Montreal went over him, which was kind of a surprise to most people, he was immediately slipping down to 3.
Hmm. See, in that, like, let's not get too far into draft talk, but like, in theory, there is always that, well, take the best player available thing and
Yeah.
hold them as trade bait.
Uh-huh.
And that makes me think like, a team like Montreal could have potentially offered a package to ensure that their guy was there. But
True.
then then a team like Seattle acquires more draft capital and then say has two top 10 picks.
But at the same time, if Montreal didn't pick who they did, the Devils were picking him second.
Okay.
In that scenario, right? In the real world scenario that did happen. But I do get you, and I agree.
Anyway, let's talk here and now though.
Yeah.
I don't. It's early and team wise is always because we know this. We know that hockey is the sport where luck factors into success the most. This scientifically proven. Um,
I mean, I think, like, see, with hockey, though, like, sure, you have luck, but at the same time, right? Like, you still need a well rounded team, right? Like, otherwise, Edmonton would be at the top of the standings every year because they have the best player.
but Edmonton was in the top of their standing at least last year, and it shows to me nothing. And
True, but they
Edmonton
have,
didn't
like,
have the balance.
yeah, exactly. But, like, the point is that, like, it would be undisputed if there was no skill involved through the whole team, like skill separation, right? Because they
Mhm.
have in theory, the best player. But at the same time, there is luck because a bounce decides a game. The way a puck deflects, the way anything happens, like one small thing snowballs the whole game. And I agree. But I wouldn't say that like it's any more drastic than other major sports.
Okay. I mean, so let's get back to the initial question then. Is there any true surprise here in a good way? We obviously know that there are teams like my Penguins who are a surprise in a bad way, but you know, I'm looking for other areas to address.
I mean, so again, like I think Seattle's a surprise in a good way, and aside from that, the Devils, um, and I really don't like. I don't know the rest of the Western Conference aside from Seattle. I don't think is a surprise.
Okay, but in the case of the Devils and Seattle, is it sustained? Is it going to sustain itself over the course of 82 games, or
I
are because I know
don't
you're a
see.
realistic fan.
I don't see the Devils winning the division. Does that mean I see? I think they can make the playoffs, especially 11
Do they
games
make
played.
us? Do they have the potential of making a second round? I'm not even going to
Um,
say deep run. Let's just put it
so
as moderate
that
success.
is conditional, right? Because we already are down Blackwood for I don't know what now, right?
And Palat.
And Palat, right? But Palat, we were showing that if the team, other team members can step up, right? No, Palat would make our team better, no doubt. But Wood stepped up. Bastion has had some good games. Like, were you expecting anything from these fourth liners? Probably not, right?
Yeah, Wood had a nice move the other night.
Yeah, and so I'm not really like unless we start piling more injuries onto our forwards, but there are more of them, right? The problem is with Blackwood getting injured. He like pulled a muscle, probably like pulled something or popped something out. I don't know. I didn't actually look at the any of the news around that, but Vanishek is a good goalie, but who's going to back him if Blackwood's injury is more severe than we think? And like the whole season was basically riding on the fact that we have like a 1A 1B type of situation where you can have a 45-30 something split or a 50-30 split, probably closer to 45-30 whatever it is. And if Blackwood's not, and then because we also have what like we LTIR Bernier, I don't remember. We LTIR some goalie, so like
You know, it's not a good sign when Bernie's on your roster, though.
yeah,
You know that.
but like the point is that like I'm not worried about really offensive productivity. I think Brad just is continuing to want to prove himself. Heischer and Hughes like sure that like they are three people who can make plays, and in order for us to win the way we're currently winning, we don't need all of them to technically show up at the same time. We need
Okay.
one of them
Okay.
because we are getting that support from the other lines, the second and third, the third and fourth lines.
Mhm.
So if our goalie situation stabilizes, I see us doing pretty well. Probably like second. I would be surprised, like happily surprised if we are second in the Metro, but like not like going in as at least third in the Metro is not a pipe dream. I don't think. Not needing a wild card spot to get to the playoffs is pretty. I think that should be a realistic goal for the team.
Okay, so top three in the division is where you want the Devils to sit.
Yes,
Okay.
at the current moment, again, that will change if our goaltending goes down the drain.
Oh yeah.
But the way it currently looks, I don't think top three is impossible. I actually think it's pretty realistic.
So, in what's more realistic, you guys sustaining offense to support moderate goaltending
Yeah.
while this happens, or better goaltending to support moderate offense? Because your scoring or
We're
offense is
so
not as prolific as other teams.
right, but we are making so the thing is our offense, while it's impressive, we are making so many more shots than our opponent.
Okay,
Um
which is always a good sign.
the disparity is since before yesterday's game it was like 40 to 27 in shots per game. Like shots allowed versus shots taken.
It's a very good margin.
But that margin I think is ridiculous. But if we can half those shots, like sure, they probably are nitty gritty on ones that probably weren't going to go in anyway. But at least we are showing that we are pushing pucks towards the net, right?
Yes, which is
And
always the mantra that I would have for a team.
yeah,
Having
so
seeing quality shots over number of shots makes no sense to me because you just as easily stop
yeah,
92% of quality shots as you do 92% of any shots,
right. So if
and
you
you
looked
might as
at
well put more shots in.
yeah, like if you looked at Ryan Graves' goal yesterday, it was ridiculous. It just slowly trickled through the 5 hole. Like that shot probably would never go in 9 times out of 10, but it did because he just kind of flung it. So the I think that the way that the team needs to at least maintain this sort of performance in terms of being able to even down the line at least being able to squeak out a point, like if we're playing Calgary next, right? If we're able to squeak out a point, it's continuing that way because we're taking a lot of pressure off our goaltending by not allowing the shots on the reverse side.
Mhm.
And I mean, I hope it gets better, but their save percentage isn't really that great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different story for my team. Having watched most of the games, I'd say that we're still giving a high amount of shots to the other team despite most games out shooting. And
Right.
and I'm just gonna transition into the state of whatever the fuck's going on with them because
Yeah.
they somehow start the season either 3-0 or whatever.
Yep.
It looked real strong.
Hmm.
And the mentality that Sullivan, the coach, had was we're going to score the dirty goals, and that's how we're going to maintain offense, which is, how I envision that. I mean, that's how they won back to back cups.
Right.
Sure, the group around it, that philosophy is older, but at the same time, that kind of play never really is contingent on age. It's about, you know, just blistering something at the net.
Correct.
And so I don't think that they've sustained actually attacking in that way. They revert, for whatever reason, I don't know if it has to be the players in the locker room because this has gone on for almost 10 years now.
Uh-huh.
They find this system that works
Right.
and then immediately run away from it.
Right.
And that's also on top of the fact that they value offensive defensemen way too much. Mike Matheson was the one that they brought in to be an offensive defenseman because when Letang wasn't on the ice, they got rid of him this year. And now it's Jeff Petrie and P.O. Joseph on the second and third. And these are wonderful things when they work, but when you need stay-at-home defensemen who are going to block shots and do things like you say the Devils are good at, which is to increase the margin of shots that you generate and minimize shots that are attempted by the other team.
Right.
The Penguins don't have it, and on top of it, I hate to give credit to local sports radio because they lean so conservatively and don't even try to hide politics. But the one thing that they are right on is Jari and DeSmith, statistically speaking, are, well, around midweek this week, were 29th and 30th in goaltending lead metrics,
Ooh.
which is, I mean, kudos to them for not being dead last among starters, but they basically are. And the unfortunate thing is now you've brought back Malkin, you've brought back Letang, and these are nice things. Jeff Carter is around for, I think, another 2 years. Petrie is not on a cheap deal himself. Brian Rust got a 6-year deal, I want to say. So all these pieces that basically say we're going to try to build everything around decent but not great goaltending. And you know as well as I do, goaltending doesn't really become available in form
No.
of a dominant player during the trade deadline because dominant goaltenders ensure wins, and those teams aren't looking to sell.
But they
So
also command a
there
lot of
is,
money.
they do. But if there's a guy on, on a rental
Hmm.
last year of his contract, then you know as well as I do, a team like Pittsburgh has shown, and especially now that they've committed financial resources to saying that we're keeping the band together, they'll probably ship off that future again. But there will be no goaltender that provides a substantial boost.
Yeah,
The
true.
fact of the matter that Fleury has been rumored for over 2 years as a potential reunion piece, and Fleury is 38 years old, I want to say,
Please, no.
goes to show how bad the goaltending was, that the fans would rather an almost 40-year-old goaltender come back.
Yeah, that's so
Now,
bad. What?
granted, Brian Burke was not going to do that,
No.
and Minnesota eventually got him,
Mhm.
and Minnesota kept him.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get better. So
I mean,
I
thanks
think
for
he's one of the,
Marino.
yeah. Look, again, Marino and Matheson are on big contracts because Jim Rutherford loved, and I mean loved, giving guys that he just acquired a big deal.
Mhm.
Yes, Marino was a rookie that came up through the ranks. Matheson was already on a bad contract in when they brought him in from Florida.
Oof.
Marcus Pedersen was basically a fringe guy who hadn't cracked Vancouver's
Yep.
NHL roster for a regular basis, and he was a third pairing defenseman when Rutherford brought him into the Penguins. And yes, we're talking years ago now. And Rutherford gave him, I think, a 4 or 5 year extension, like
Yep.
20 games in. And
Hmm.
so it was more of this, we don't have a lot of young guys, and we have to keep these young guys around to solidify the core that's getting older. The problem is you then overpay the young guys as if they were worth even half of what the core was making.
Yep.
So yeah, these third pairing defensemen are now making 2.5, 3 million a year, which is not what a third pairing defenseman should make.
Nope.
Under the salary cap limitations that there are, I wish it was like the NBA and a third pairing defenseman could make 9 million a year, but that's not how the revenue streams of hockey work.
Nope.
So now there's no room. You have said the next 4 years we're going for it, and like I, I don't know.
I'm sorry, but like you're going for it and being in the metro, it's already
Metro's always
so
going to be tough.
tight, right?
The Metro's always going to be tough. And look, it things have a way of leveling themselves out. You know as well as I do that the Penguins are not going to lose 16 straight games.
No.
They do have enough talent to where a 6 game losing streak in itself that has already happened probably is an
Yeah.
anomaly and will not stand that long.
But also
However,
like the point is that like the metro is so tough that like you're you need to be exceptional to make it in the metro. because all teams are so close together. Well, aside from Columbus in this case, even
Mhm.
Pittsburgh is close with the rest of the pack. Like,
And the funny thing about this all is they were top three last year and
yeah,
brought everybody back,
yeah,
aside from those pieces that they traded away. They gave Sullivan a 5-year extension, which basically says we can't do the whole Terrian, we're going to fire the guy with a poor start thing because we just invested a,
yep,
a big contract for 5 more years.
yep.
And so there is no way of saying to the public that a change can be made. You've invested so heavily that you're kind of screwed. This is kind of like it reminds me of what the Blackhawks are going through, but maybe at a slower pace. The
True.
Blackhawks kind of just got there.
Yep.
It
It
didn't
was
take long.
one
But the
day and then one day.
Penguins, depending on how the season goes, it could get there.
But my point is, with the way that teams are playing right now in the Metro, I would not be surprised if Washington or Pittsburgh is not in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, I would still be surprised if both of them,
I
if
said
not
one of
only
them. If
one of them.
one of them don't make the playoffs, I'm not
I
surprised.
understand, but they both still have the talent outside of goaltending
Yeah,
that should get you into the playoffs. And I can say Malkin, is, you know, Jekyll and Hyde. You never know what form you're going to get, and Letang is still as injury prone as he's ever been. But the fact of the matter is, Crosby is a talent that doesn't statistically slow down that much.
yeah. But my point is that, like, okay, the Devils are probably playing above how they will be playing for the rest of the season, but they can make the playoffs. The Rangers, Carolina, they can make the
They
playoffs.
are what they are, though.
Yeah,
Those are teams that are expected to be at that era of
yeah.
their
And then
win
the
total.
Islanders, they're surprising everybody right now.
Right, and I don't expect that to last.
But sure, they could probably eke out the wild card spot. That we have. I think.
True. I don't think that there's anything in front of Sorokin to really be happy about, but
No, but Sorokin is just playing well.
right, and that's all you really need when you're actually in the playoffs.
Right. And then, like, you have Philly, Washington, Pittsburgh, and Columbus.
Hmm.
Columbus, I think, is just like done for the season. Like, don't even try.
Yeah.
And it's only been 11 games or whatever. So you have those three teams. I don't expect Philly to make it, but realistically, though one of Pittsburgh and Washington should pass the Islanders. But then will they? They basically both need to pass the Islanders, and then one of them, both of them need to pass either, New Jersey, New York, Carolina. So, what I I can I can see a time where we don't have one of them in the playoffs. I don't know, and it'll be a first, I think, for or at least like in recent history. I know that one of them have always been there, if not both. So it would be a weird playoffs, I think.
Hmm. I think it would be weird just if they both Pittsburgh and Washington, or even if only one of them didn't make the playoffs, just based on the past 15 years alone.
Right, but like if we're looking right now, Devils are playing out of their mind. Even if they slow down, like it's realistic for them to make the playoffs, right? Rangers and Carolina, they're both doing pretty well. I don't think they're playing out of their mind, but I don't think they are playing. It's not like they're gonna just get like instantly, infinitely worse overnight.
True.
Yeah. Oh, and Ottawa is for sale apparently. But you cannot move the team. So that happened.
Yeah, but the owner of Ottawa was like an absolute tragedy. Like he actually sat. Like I watched a video a couple weeks ago where in the past 6 years, I don't know which year it was, he actually sat with fans and told the fans that the team
Yep.
was basically crap and not to expect anything.
Yeah, he's done that. He's
That's
yeah.
your owner. I mean,
Not new.
kudos for transparency. I wish that the Pirates owner would just be like, yeah, we're crap. I wish I could tell you it was going to be better, but we'll see you when we see you. Don't even come to the game.
Oh no, the guy still's like, come to the games. I want to make them not crap or whatever, but no.
And to say that in Canada,
Yeah.
which is like, we know for a fact that hockey players in themselves have said that going to Toronto and Canadian markets is just a completely different animal than anywhere,
Yeah.
even like the cities near the border, like Buffalo or anything like that.
Hmm.
So to actually say that to a Canadian fan base directly, why would you have any support?
No, he doesn't. Nobody. They have like Ottawa's been in a bad place because or at least the fans have bought
They
billboards
accidentally
telling him to.
made they accidentally made the conference finals, which put them in a place where they basically had to try to run it back.
Yeah.
And then the real talent of them showed, and then the wheels fell off. They
Yeah.
sold everybody off, like Peugeot and stuff like that, and they acquired draft picks. Those guys haven't panned out outside of Kachuk,
Yep.
and so I mean, kudos to Kachuk is the only thing I can say because didn't he sign a big deal to stay?
I don't
'Cause he's the
remember.
captain. I could be wrong.
Yeah. All right. Well. Any other team you want to talk about?
No, no, I got everything off my chest.
All right.
So
So
yeah, now we talk about Phil. A
Bills
little something about Phil.
Iron Man streak, which
Yes, the
because of
unlikeliest American hero.
because of how it is, we also have to talk about Yandel.
Yeah, I
So
mean, so
I
we know this past week, Kessel has broken the Ironman streak that was set only last year by Keith Yandel. The difference with this being, we know that Kessel was going to eventually break it regardless. Yandel has since retired. However, it was a sense of disagreement and uproar with the Flyers players last year where Yandel was playing because Yandel was a healthy scratch with about, I think we established somewhere between 15 and 20 games left in the season.
yeah, and that's how his streak ended. Not for what an Iron Man really is. It's injury, like no injuries and just constantly there. It was ended by a scratch. He was
Yeah.
healthy.
Yes. And so this is more an assessment of the timing of this Ironman streak because it was probably something more destined to, if morally played out correctly, happen closer to the All-Star break.
But
Not
also, I
not
thought
very close, but
when Yandel was still playing, I was like, he can reach 1,000 games. I
oh
fully
yeah.
thought that. And then to hear that he's healthy scratched, I was just kind of shocked, right? So
Mhm.
while I think that Kessel would have overtaken Yandel, eventually, but we established that he would have, like, if Yandel played through the end of the season, he would have got 1,000 games.
Oh yeah.
I,
Which that in itself would have been more.
yeah, and I think that regardless of who's been the longest active Iron Man, getting 1,000 games would have been like just a major accomplishment.
And also, we have to discuss the fact that Philadelphia was already a crapshoot out of the playoffs
Yeah, I think they had
at that point last year. So why not root for the individual accolades? Why would you
yeah,
still
I,
do the
I think they
healthy
literally
scratch?
had like a 2% chance to make the playoffs at that time.
Yeah.
It
So
was ridiculous.
it made no sense. Now you can make the argument because Kessel's on a 1 year, 1.5 or $2.5 million deal that Kessel is in the twilight of his career, and
Hmm,
there is no guarantee that he was actually going to be guaranteed a roster spot, if not for the late signing that did take place.
true.
Um,
But at the same time, I don't know. I think Kessel, like, I think he still has a spot in the league.
yeah,
So
It
I
can
feel like
also
that
make the
point's a little
art.
moot because that I still think he has a spot in the league, whether it was with Vegas this year, right? Or any like literally any other team. Like freaking Seattle could have signed him for 1 year, $1 million. He still has a spot in the league.
Throughout, although we don't know what Kessel's what his ambitions were at this point after what 3 years in Arizona.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard when you finally have the chance to go pursue your options to settle for teams that are not going to contend. Now, I will say that the other side of things is Kessel probably breaks this streak way sooner if not for the cancer diagnosis in Boston.
Right. I do agree. Um it's just like I don't know cuz it and I think so hopefully and I think Kessel should be the first and one over 1,000 game. And I really think that even like once you eclipse 1,000 games, I don't really think like it's about the next person eclipsing you. Like hitting 1,000 games for any other player coming up who will do another Ironman would probably be like that milestone. Because at
Mhm.
some point it's not it's no longer how good you are. It's literally can you just keep showing up on the ice? Like can you be Yarmer Yager without taking breaks by going overseas? So yeah, but I do think like every time we look back at Kessel, it's like, oh well, Yandels was just kind of unceremoniously dropped, and it kind of is like a unnecessary black stain on it, but unfortunate because of the timing and the closeness between both of them, getting to their numbers.
Mhm.
So
Well, what's weird is that he obviously, in terms of talent, is not close to Yager, but Yager essentially kept playing for as long as he did because he admitted that he couldn't stop eating muffins. Like he
yeah,
was like, I love muffins and carbs too much, so I need the exercise.
yeah,
And it really like Hessel. I mean, if you look at him without the jersey on, he, if he stopped playing, he.
he
I
likes
mean,
those hot dogs, man.
I know that part of it was like his face probably was a reaction to cancer medication.
Mhm.
But the rest of it, there's no denying that, man. That was
He
not
he likes his
that.
hot dogs, man.
He's eating protein. He's eating meat. He's eating red meat, and he's having a good time with it.
Yeah.
He was
So
still one of the fastest skaters in actual gameplay for a long time.
yep. All right. On to something that happened recently. I think it was 2 nights, a couple days ago. We
I
had,
think at this point it's 5 days.
huh? Oh, yeah, probably. But yeah, it was Toronto at Anaheim. So, there was this pretty heated discussion going on everywhere where basically you had the same thing happen twice on different goal calls, right? In one of them, even though they stopped a scoring chance, it was called as a power play, right? The
Hmm.
other one was given a penalty shot.
Hmm.
So the whole point is, how do you they literally looked exactly the same, right? The stick wrapping around and holding the other stick for making a shot. How do the officials make two drastically different calls on two such equivalent breakaways?
And the good news of this was that neither one of these breakaways resulted in anything. Um,
Right, but it
I
was a
don't think
lot
that
more
Anna.
stressful for, like giving a 2 minute power play for what? That that's stressful for Toronto. It was a scoring chance.
True. Although I would, this is one of those toss-ups where it's more like, would you rather have the 2 minute power play and have potentially a chance at endless shots at the goaltender, or do you ensure yourself the most quality shot with a
But
penalty
the
shot?
point is that regardless of the actual outcome, they should have been the same due to how equivalent they were.
Hmm.
And it's not like the teams could have chosen that they wanted what they got. They just kind of got it, correct?
Hmm.
So that was just, it was mind boggling when I was watching this game and I saw that. And then because I tuned into it when the first one had already happened. And so then I saw people online that were just like, what the hell is this? This exactly happened before. So I had to go look at it. And then there was a GI call also. Or,
Goaltender interference at the end
yeah.
of the third period.
Yeah, and I'm I'm speechless, man.
Yeah, that one was interesting because watching it back, I don't understand how you can call goaltender interference when the
Yeah.
shot was so wide that it deflected off of Leafs defenseman who was technically like outside the main part of the crease,
Yep.
went off his foot or skate, I don't remember which one, and then went in.
Yep.
Like that's a level of
Ridiculousness.
unpredictability that I don't understand how you can utilize replay and say that the goaltender would have had a chance to stop something that, like, if the goaltender has to go from corner to corner of the goalposts or goalpost to goalpost, it already is extremely hard for them to do. Then add the fact that their own teammate is putting the goal into play. Um,
Right.
I think it's hard to say goaltender interference, and I know this is maybe a little controversial. Can you actually say goaltender interference happens when the goal is resulted by your own team?
So it's not about how the goals resulted, it's about how another player on the opposing team is preventing a reasonable chance for the goalie to save it.
And I will say there was a Ducks player and a Leafs player kind of jostling in front of the goaltender.
Right.
But that Leafs player who was jostling was not the Leafs player where the puck went in. That was a second Leafs player.
Right.
So, yes, that's interference, but it's technically interference on both sides.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I was kind of like speechless at that. Like, I just think these three instances are pretty egregious in the one penalty shot, the one power play being so, called differently, even though being basically exactly the same, is a pretty egregious thing for officials to mess up, especially when they can look at it, right?
Especially when there's multiple instances of it in one game.
Right.
You literally have the blueprint to call it
The same way. I don't
consistent.
care if you call the penalty shot or the
Right.
2 minutes. Just call
Do
the same thing.
you don't? Yeah. Yep. And I think that there has been a number of instances of disallowed goals, probably being higher than average in the NHL so far this year.
But also,
But
like, this is the first time I think that we've had like more than one kind of egregious officiating moment in one game,
mhm,
which is why I wanted to bring it up.
yeah, this is one of those things where I think it's controversial because of how it was handled. That
Hmm.
being said, it's one of those instances where early in the season, when you have, just like in the NFL, when there's more pass interference calls earlier in the season and there's more roughing the passer until the players understand what they can and cannot do. And then eventually, when you see a reduction in it,
It's a
then
combination of them being looser and players understanding boundaries more.
right. But at the end of the day, if there are instances where the referee calls the same thing or calls are having to be made on two very similar instances in the same game, you still, it just like football, how can you call one thing roughing the passer and the other thing not?
Yes, exactly. So, all right, on to some football. So, we have in the AFC, we'll start with the AFC, right? So, Buffalo's on top, followed by the Jets, Miami, and New England. Um, Any comment on any of those teams? I don't really think. I think Buffalo was the clear favorite. I don't really think anything else is super
Yeah,
surprising on that.
and Buffalo's played like they're the clear favorite.
Yeah. Then in the
Like there's
North, we have Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. So I'm sorry, but the two sports we've talked about don't really look so good for you. But I do think the teams are different, so you shouldn't see the hockey one that low in the standings. But
oh no, I saw this season coming. In
yeah,
fact,
no,
I apparently am one of the few realistic Steelers fans who saw this coming.
this the Steelers, I think I kind of saw them being this low, but I'm saying the hockey Pittsburgh for hockey shouldn't be that low in theory.
Right, but the hope for the hockey is that there's about 70 more games.
Yeah,
Whereas the
you got
Steelers are
10.
basically like,
You got 10 games.
let's beat the dead horse and see if it has a pulse.
Yep.
Um, no, but like I knew early on, I mean, it was Trubisky at quarterback, and I knew eventually it was going to be Pickett, and at that point,
It's
the
over.
season was probably going to be lost. And now I look forward to the Steelers games for the reason of I want to see Pickett do well. That's the only thing I care about right now. I expect them to lose, but I want to be excited by plays he makes and to, talk to my father and stuff like that during Steelers games and be like, he threw a nice touchdown there. He threw a good ball. He's not making a lot of mistakes. I'm looking for optimism in this sole area. That's it.
Fair enough. Um,
So,
yeah. All right. On to the South, we have Tennessee, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, and Houston, with also this having the only tie so far in the NFL, which I feel like ties are quite rare, but not like super rare.
speaking of beating a dead horse, the fact that Indianapolis probably still thinks that they have a chance is very bad. They shut Matt Ryan down as a starter for the rest of the year,
Yep.
which probably was to be expected.
Yep.
Um, but this is one of those things where Tennessee is probably benefiting from being in a bad division because
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill has told us with his play that he, once the playoffs come around, is not going to be the guy who leads
Nope.
any second half comeback or anything like that. What they are is what they are. If Malik Willis is going to play a majority of games because Tannehill is now hurt, then what do you expect him to do in the playoffs? Because for
Yep.
sure you're not going to open up all the doors and give him the key to the complete offense in the playoffs.
Right.
So I hate to say Tennessee probably has a really
But
good defense, probably has a really good running game, and they are exactly what they have been.
yeah, but the point is that they are benefiting from their division being so bad, which is,
Right.
but I mean
Which is
that's how it
inconsistent
works.
that every year.
Yeah. All right, and then finally, last division in the AFC, we have Kansas City, LA, Denver, and Las Vegas. I'm not
It's
really
really
surprised.
funny how bad Russell Wilson is now.
Yep.
It's really bad. Like the fact that the Steelers only just this past weekend became the lowest scoring offense in football. That's
Yep.
how bad Denver was. Was it took additional weeks for an inept offense in Pittsburgh to catch up.
Yeah. All right, finally, the NFC. We have Philadelphia, Dallas, New York, and Washington. New York is
Philly's real.
surprising all of us, 6-2. Everything else is kind of expected.
This is classic NFC East. There either is a handful of great teams because I'm gonna say the Giants defense and their offensive line those things seem to have been fixed
But
under
I think they're
Dayball.
clicking. I don't know if you can call it fixed, man.
Well, I
They're
do think that
clicking.
they have the right pieces
Sure.
to interchange things and still be successful.
Sure.
But Dallas and Philadelphia are both very good.
Yeah.
Um, and this is how it works when the NFC East is good. There's still that one stink team, but everybody else is in contention. Um, and Philadelphia is probably the most legitimate team in the
Yep.
NFC.
I would
Um,
agree.
I'm still looking at the NFC North where Minnesota's number one. And the fact that they added Hawkinson, these are all great things that don't mean anything until when
But
the
also,
playoffs come.
like, I do really think they also are kind of like a Tennessee situation where they're also benefiting from the rest of their division just not showing up.
Benefiting from the rest of their division not showing up because it's out of nowhere.
Yeah,
We
but
look
they're not showing up, which is that why I say it's. I didn't say it was the rest of their division being bad. I'm just saying they're not showing up because it's out of nowhere.
true, but like we've seen the script be written for Rodgers to succeed despite the fact that they don't draft a wide receiver in the first round or go
Mm-hmm.
out and get a splash free agency wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
That has never deterred them from being successful in the past.
Right.
And their defense is not bad still.
True.
It's just another year older.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, Rodgers now looks bad. And we knew last year Rodgers was playing very well, probably in spite of the franchise he was attached to.
Mm-hmm.
But then it signs an extension to stay, and now does not look like he's capable. And part of that's probably on inexperienced receivers, but part of it
Right.
is just as much on the fact that Rodgers doesn't seem to have all of his fastball anymore.
Right. Okay, finally, the South. We have Atlanta, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Carolina. All of them are bad. What's new?
Well, it is a little new because we found out what really makes Brady stink.
Yeah, I
A
mean,
bad
I think
offensive line and
Tampa is the only
personnel.
kind of surprise there.
Yeah, a bad offensive line and literally an absolute catastrophe of a personal life is what it took for Brady to be brought down to being a human again.
Yeah. Okay. Uh huh. And West has Seattle, San Francisco, LA, and Arizona, which are all actually pretty close together.
They're all pretty close together, which really makes the Geno Smith storyline not deserve all the recognition it needs. Because the fact
Yeah.
of the matter that you guys had this guy start in place of Eli Manning at the end of his career. Imagine what could have been if you never had to draft Danny Dimes. You
Oh,
guys would have had an additional 3 years.
great. All right. On to the NBA where we have some Brooklyn Nets
The
stuff.
absolute shit show that is the Nets. It's really bad, um, and I mean we've seen the drama for a couple of years now, but we
And you
I
want
have
to
no
know
way of
something?
knowing.
I saw this on Reddit or something. It's like all of this is happening, and the one thing is Steve Nash managed to escape. No, he didn't get fired. He escaped this shit show by getting
Yeah,
fired.
yeah, it was probably the best thing to happen for him.
Yeah.
The and it probably all starts with Steve Nash's hiring. To be honest with you, because what do like it was so stupid of the Nets because when they hired Jason Kidd to be
Yep.
their coach and had Joe Johnson, Paul Pierce,
Right.
all these guys like Kevin Garnett, it was like, what do you expect them to listen to a guy who was their peer and competitor only months ago?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not. And so they did the same fucking thing with Steve Nash.
Yeah.
Steve Nash has been I mean, yeah, he kind of has been away from the game since like 2016, but Steve Nash will always kind of be a player in the mind of guys who are currently playing or have been
Right.
in the league for 10 years.
I mean,
So,
also like, okay, but at the same time, Steve Nash escaped this, which is good on him. The point is that like the Nets are finally doing something, mostly because the rest of the NBA and the world is tired of the Nets not acting and Kyrie not at least issuing some type of statement.
but look, we have to do the. I know we talked a lot of hockey, and it's probably going to push this a little long, but we have to do the due diligence on the Nets. Um, they hire Steve Nash, which isn't well received in itself. Um, and this is after Kyrie and Durant have been there for a couple of years, both of them with injury prone starts that allow them to sit on and not play for a long time. And they're finally together, and they decide they have to have James Harden. The
Right.
only way this works is we have to have James Harden. So James Harden comes along, and then Kyrie decides COVID vaccination is not for me. So I'm not going to play.
Mm-hmm.
So then James Harden, new to the scene, James Harden says, I don't like this scenario, but I'll live with it. It's better than what was going on in Houston. And then a year later, they're not even a year later, Harden is now saying, I'm hurt. I don't want to play. This is not. And
Yep.
kudos to Harden because as much as a stripper loving fuckhead is in the wrong for a lot of other reasons in life, he was guaranteed a scenario that was not what
He got.
was put in front of him.
Yeah.
And he said, I came here under the pretense that, I could have gone to Philadelphia and played with Embiid, and Ben Simmons would have gone to Houston or something, but I came here.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, so now Kyrie's still being a fuckhead. He doesn't want to play because of the COVID thing. He's a part-time player, which is always what you want to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on is part-time play. So now we have to get rid of Harden because he's basically opting not to play. Harden goes to Philadelphia. Ben Simmons comes back. Yes, they probably get some draft capital, which will be okay at best because Philly's now in a competitive window for the next few years. So we're talking first round picks probably are in the late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben Simmons doesn't want to play. Ben Simmons still has anxiety from Philly hate and the fact that he can't shoot a ball to save his fucking life. So Ben Simmons is out. And then Ben Simmons decides that he's going to come back starting this year. Ben Simmons now has a knee problem, despite the fact he had a full year and a half basically of no play.
But
Now
it
he's
was
got an injury
probably
problem.
no play plus not working out as he would.
Correct. But we have to flash back and say, well, over the summer, Durant said it's Nash or me. And the Nets said, well, we're not getting rid of Nash. So now Durant wants to go to Phoenix or he wants to go to Miami. And it takes several efforts from Nets ownership to kind of settle things down and say, look, we have pieces here, we can still work things out. And because Durant is basically choosing his own deal and the Nets are kind of in a situation where they're not going to get a lot back from whatever team Durant waives his no movement clause for.
Yep.
The Nets say, don't play them. We don't have to trade you. So Durant is like, fine. At least I'm not going to Sacramento or something like that. So then the season starts, and now this is the best situation for Steve Nash because you've had, as a head coach, to deal with drama for now 2 years.
Yep.
And then what follows is your player who has already opted to basically be part-time and show that he does not care, despite the fact that he's from New Jersey, grew up as a Nets fan, has decided that he has given more effort when he was with the Cavaliers. He has given more effort and dedication when he was with the Celtics. He has decided to screw over his hometown team and his childhood dream of playing with the Nets to the extent where he is in Brooklyn. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because you've been in New Jersey and New York longer than I have at this point. And I don't know New York City as well as I did New Jersey. but New York City and Brooklyn have Jewish communities that are somewhat
Yes.
known compared to other parts of this country.
You
Like,
can know communities for every like, thing. And
like
yes, he literally has to go meet with basically the Nets are like, yeah, if you don't go meet with the parish leaders of the Brooklyn Jewish
the
community,
Irish.
we're
Yeah, yeah. If now we're at the point where if Kyrie, okay, no, we have to go back a little further. Kyrie tweets out this link, a book turned documentary about uh, how America has to wake up uh, Hebrews to Negroes, and how America needs to wake up and kind of realize. I didn't watch a documentary, read any excerpts of the books, but what it sounds like is it's basically more or less
okay.
a publication
But
that
also,
suggests
I
that the
don't.
Jewish people are in the wrong.
But I don't care what like the fact that you are a public person, right? So
Mhm.
regardless of what you think, you are subject to the court of public opinion. So,
Right. And for him to say he was not promoting something by putting it on his Twitter is ridiculous. So then he decides, and I'm sorry to interject you, but I have to like put the timeline in place. For him to then say he's not promoting it, he's not going to issue an apology, and this fucking flat earther and anti-vaxxer to again stand on his beliefs so much so at a time when Kanye West is saying that Kyrie Irving is the only other person in the world who's a real person, despite the fact that Kanye West has just been dismissed from basically all of his business ventures for siding with anti-Semitism. As no, even if Kyrie doesn't post this on his Twitter, he's already being linked to anti-Semitism. It should probably disavow it.
but it's
Kyrie Irving
easier.
decides to double down and
So,
say, I can't be anti-Semitic if I know who I am as a person who is what? Not Jewish?
but the point is that if this stopped at him being linked by Kanye and he didn't actually post anything that would further this anti-Semitic thing, right? It
Right,
would be
but
a
at the same
lot
time,
easier on everybody.
it's a lot easier because yes, and I hate to say this as the rationale, but Kanye's a fucking crazy person. We know this. He does crazy ass shit that for whatever reason people decide to follow his lead on. And
Yep.
the fact of the matter is, at that point in time, Kyrie Irving had said nothing.
Hmm.
So it's very easy to say, because of the person that Kanye West is, because, Kanye West also said Stephen A. Smith was in that same conversation. And has anybody dragged Stephen A. Smith's feet? No, because Stephen A. Smith didn't fucking do some dumb shit following it and then fucking double down. Kyrie Irving chooses to double down, despite the fact he is in a community where Jewish deli is a common phrase in the New York market. And the fact of the matter is, then triple down by saying that he's not going to do anything. So now we are at the point where,
So he's basically been fined $1.2 million. But
yes,
that's but
he's
at a
suspended
minimum.
at minimum 5 games.
So he's been fined $1.2 million at a minimum, basically.
Right. And this suspension, what, came yesterday
Yesterday,
late, and then today,
he
obviously
finally
he's not
issued
going on the road trip.
something. Finally,
After the Nets owner emails Kyrie Irving's agent and says, if these steps aren't done, you're not playing for us anymore. The steps of
but also
meeting
the
with,
what's even worse is that for Kyrie, right? He's on the last year of his deal. If correct me if I'm wrong.
correct.
So he's already like all of this has basically tanked him so worthless that the Nets literally have no stock in him. They will just leave him on the side. So he can't even play if he wants to at this point. Like,
Right. Because the Nets are now saying we are bad. We've started the season bad. Things on this trajectory are not improving. So if we punt on the season, so be it.
mhm,
What's it to us?
right.
Because it what Durant already wanted out. So
Right.
what is it to us if he wants out next year? Um, but getting back to it, it's basically on the condition of Kyrie has to meet with Jewish leaders in the community and learn things and go to counseling, and he had to issue an apology. And only 4 hours after this email goes to the agent is an apology issued.
But nobody
Fact of
believes
the
it.
matter, right? I wouldn't believe it either, because yesterday when he had the choice in the matter, he declined.
Hmm.
Only at the stake of his money that was going to come in did he apologize.
Right.
Which, and now at this point, the next GM says it's a step in the right direction. He apologized.
Not enough.
I'm going to tell you it's not, because it's very
Well,
clear when
okay,
you
so
read the
hold on. There's
timeline
also
that
this,
he
right?
didn't
Like,
mean it.
everybody's gonna agree with you, but if the Nets don't say something like that because he actually did something that he was supposed to in this situation to keep playing, if the Nets don't issue that type of statement, this goes in a completely different direction. So they
Well, I'm
have
gonna
to say it's a step in the right direction, but not enough.
well,
But
see,
even if we know that that's a complete fallacy, if they don't issue that type of statement, there's another problem.
okay,
Anyway,
but I'm going to say this, and yes, the Nets operate in their response with a PR component in mind. However, we're talking about a 30-year-old man here who had the wherewithal to tweet out this stuff, and
yeah,
I
but
need to
that
get this
doesn't
point
matter.
finished. I need to get this point finished. We can't baby a guy who has already said that he's going to take every opportunity to not care, as he did with COVID vaccination,
Right.
as he did with other
But
things, as he did with lying to the Celtics fans in front of their face about re-signing. At some point, PR is PR. And apparently, Kyrie has been entitled enough in his life to where PR moves shouldn't be the response. In my opinion, the response should be, "That's great. We
but
told you to
the
apologize, and
point
I
is
don't
you
believe
have to
you
look
until
at
you
it
show me."
that you can't just so it's not PR because of Kyrie Irving. It's PR that the Nets have to do because
Right.
of
It's
what
because
they
they're protecting
stated
their ass.
beforehand, right?
Right.
So I think them saying that is a moot point. We all understand why they have to say it, but nobody's going to take it with a grain of salt. We get it,
Yep.
okay? And we'll see what Kyrie does in the coming days slash weeks. But let's move on.
Well, let's move on, partly because the Nets, who have done all these stupid things, like it's not, "Oh, woe is me, Nets," because of the things that they did. They fucking are about to hire a coach who's suspended from Boston for having a scandal as their next head coach.
The Nets literally, okay, that is another thing. The Nets have always just been, let's try to find somebody, I don't care, right? But this takes, like, Kyrie's situation takes it too far for them. But do I think they care that he had a scandal? You have a PR division of your company for a reason.
Right. But at the same time, if you're going to coddle the players and then say that they did something wrong, you either have to say we're all in on coddling the players, or we're all in on saying you did something wrong. You can't go back and forth. You coddled Durant back to playing for one more year. You coddled Irving to say that, he was still in your best interest, despite the fact that he didn't side with the team for 2 years. And at some point, you have to say, okay, enough's enough. We have acted in the best interest of you, and you have not returned the favor. So Durant, every time you fuck up, we're not defending you.
But
Kyrie,
the
every
point
time you
is,
fuck up, we're not defending you either.
the point is, if they don't do that, it looks worse. Like they have to fuck
It
up.
works. Looks
But
worse as an organization.
yes,
But the fact
the
of the
point
matter
is,
is
they
that
only care
stain
about
will
the
go away.
organization, right? Like you can't like they are an organization. They care about how the organization looks. They have to F up so much that they can issue something as some type of punishment, right?
Right.
And that's
But that stain
what Kyrie's
eventually
done.
will go away. That stain eventually will go away as time goes on and
But
those
it
players are
doesn't
gone.
matter.
But
They don't want to wait.
those players in their future, in their inability to be accountable, will not go away.
Yeah, but
And
why
then
does
they'll
the
make half
company
the
care
money.
about the like again, the company doesn't necessarily care about how the players operate, just that while they are a part of the team, they do certain things, right? Like we as a whole are part of a court of public opinion and we attempt to hold them accountable because it's what we want. They have a contract with an organization that states that they must do X, Y, and Z to get paid their big bucks, right? There's nothing about teaching them how to be accountable, teaching them what's right from wrong. None of that. As long as it doesn't adversely impact the organization too much, the organization doesn't really care.
They should.
But no organization cares.
When I apply for jobs, I have to check a box that says I will operate in good faith on the organization.
On the
That should be
organization.
built into the contract of the player.
Yeah, but
And if you're not operating in good faith, then
yeah, but the
I
thing
know it's
is,
the NBA and there's a players association, but the contract should be able to be terminated.
right, but there's they're basically a union, right?
Right.
'Cause-
That's the thing that stands in the way. The NFL, the union doesn't matter though.
yeah, but
That
that's
happens. Aaron
CBA.
Hernandez is cut immediately.
Yeah, but that's collective bargaining, right? So their union, they haven't got that. But the point is that the company looks out for its best interest. In this case, it's the Nets, right? So if you deviate way too much for its best interest, where it finally can reprimand you by suspending you for 5 games without pay, it will do it because it's in its best interest. It doesn't necessarily have to align itself with your best interest. Anyway, let's take a look at the Lakers. I'm assuming.
Yeah. So my thing on the Lakers is uh, more of a media thing. We know what the Lakers are. We know that they're a shit show, and we know that they have very limited assets.
Mm-hmm.
That in the form of what 2027 and 29 first round picks.
Right.
Um, they've made their bed, have to lie in it, but yet for whatever reason, anybody of moderate success in the NBA, we're not even talking true starters, like a good sixth man, is being linked to the Lakers. It needs to stop. You know, right now, the Lakers are in a position where getting rid of Russell Westbrook is their best play.
Probably.
And at that point, yes, they'll get cap room. They still have no assets. They probably are going to have to throw in picks to get rid of Russell Westbrook for a team to eat the dead contract
Yep.
because he's making what $47 million this year. Um, so I'm tired of the Lakers being tied to anybody. Buddy Hield and Miles Turner should be traded to the Lakers. For what? For what? They literally have three undrafted guys on their bench.
Right.
Stop. The
Yep.
media loves to talk about where LeBron is. Well, unfortunately, LeBron built this shit show, and the fact of the matter is, the GM of the Lakers is a former player's agent who doesn't understand what assets are because he's only ever seen things from the side of can I get my player paid?
Right.
So now he brought in all the players that have gotten paid. They can't perform. LeBron is what, 37, 38 years old? Anthony Davis is basically in a gurney half the time. And what can you do now? Everybody else is on the veterans minimum.
Right. All right. Well, so I mean, I agree with you. I don't think I have anything more to say, but let's talk. I really wanted to get to this. So,
We've talked a lot about several things, and now do I have the
everybody's
energy for
favorite,
this?
Gonzaga,
My
specifically
favorite.
a favorite, sarcasm by the way, of
This is
my
they're trying to
co
cancel me.
host here, is attempting to join the Big 12.
It's like Gonzaga's trying to cancel me.
Yeah,
They know I have this solid argument every year that
every
you
year.
can give them whatever ranking, whatever seed you want, but until they are in a solid and quality conference,
And
I
putting up
can't
the
trust them.
numbers that they do on those years, it's not worth it.
But I have a take. I have a take. So now what we know is that Gonzaga has been in touch with the Big East, which they will never go to the Big East because it's basically like a step above whatever they're in now. But like the bottom half of the Big East is basically like going to get beaten by Gonzaga. I will give them that.
Hmm.
Um, the Pac-12, which historically speaking probably is our best play because Arizona and USC, there are always a handful of teams that will make the tournament and be good, but they're never really like ACC, Big Ten, Big
Right.
12 good. Um, so Pac-12 is normally the odd man out when it comes to college basketball in Power Five form.
Hmm.
The Big 12 has Kansas, they have Baylor, they have West Virginia, which they're not in the most solidified arena right now of the Big 12, but historically, is a very good program.
Right.
Um, Texas, Arkansas, or no, Arkansas is SEC. My apologies. So Big 12 or Texas Tech is Big 12 also. And then TCU is Big 12, TCU top 15 team this year going into. So the Big 12 has had a lot of success. The only thing is if Gonzaga joins the Big 12, one, it's a question of when.
Yeah.
Two, it's a question of what does that say about what Gonzaga has been historically? Is Gonzaga basically admitting that they were a decent team in a bad conference? You would have to say that for them to leave says they know.
But I mean,
They don't
at
have
the
a
same
football team. It's
time,
not like they're
it's
trying to
like
boost revenue.
true, but
Like
I don't know. It's
somebody crunch the numbers under the new Big 12 media deal that would be coming if Gonzaga was added. Basically, the revenue that comes in for each school and share is like $365,000 more.
Mhm.
So Gonzaga doesn't stand to gain a lot financially from this move. And neither does any other team
But
in the Big 12 from
in theory,
Gonzaga
it just
entering.
gives them more prestige for what
It,
division
it,
they're
it
in.
gives them more prestige when they enter.
Yeah.
But my take is it doesn't give them prestige because I'm sticking to my guns here in saying that once they are among top level competition in January and February and they have those losses, Gonzaga is now betting on themselves as they should have been all along
Hmm.
of saying, give us an 8 or a 9 seed and we'll still kick your ass in March,
Hmm.
in April. But long gone will be the days of Gonzaga always being a top 5 team, which is fine. Let's call a spade here. Gonzaga probably never was a top 5 team.
True.
They would, look, any we know what March Madness is. We know what college basketball storming the court is.
Hmm.
Storming the court implies that a lower quality team beats a high quality team. And it happens several times a year. So when in October, in November, and December, when you have these one-off games where Gonzaga plays a Duke or a Kansas, and then they never play a game of that quality again, it's basically a storm the court game because any team can hang with a high-quality opponent one time or two times in a season.
Mm-hmm.
That does not make, let's say, a Kansas State a top 25 team for being 11 and 15 at the end of the year and having two quality wins. It makes them an 11 and 15 team that has two quality wins that misses the tournament and will miss the NIT and they'll have no postseason.
Right.
So, what we're now looking at is that what Gonzaga truly is? Well, recruiting may not change for a couple of years after they move to the Big 12, if they do. But the environment that is Gonzaga does change. And if we can go to the next slide, Gonzaga only built their basketball stadium in 2004, which, yeah, newer stadiums have been built since, state of the art, whatever. Gonzaga does not have a football team. Gonzaga does not bring in a lot of revenue and a lot of boosters for their athletics overall. So, what Gonzaga has been selling their recruiting is an elite college basketball performance and an elite existence. And this is actually coming into my mind right this minute. It reminds me a lot of what Pitt and Syracuse were to the Big East before they moved to the ACC. Granted, the Big East was considered a power conference because they had these names and they had the competition.
But do you think?
But
I think that if they move to a Big 12, I think they can at least get a. I don't think the age of the stadium matters. I think they could get a bigger
no,
one.
it's not the age. It's the fact that they don't have the boosters to build a new stadium. So what they are is what they are for the next 15 to 20 years, probably in terms of a stadium. At the very least, if a booster comes along and says, I'm going to pledge hundreds of millions for a new stadium, we're still looking at what, 6 years out
Yeah.
of a stadium actually being built? Because we're
But
going to compare.
I think it's not unreasonable to think they could get a booster.
Right. But we're also saying it's a 6,000 seat stadium.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at the Kansas and the Texas. And yes, there are small arenas in the Big 12, but TCU, who has the smallest in the Big 12 at its current standing, has a very good coach in Jamie Dixon, who used to be at Pitt and was top 15 regularly when he was at Pitt. And up until last year, that program was not very good, despite the fact that they had a very good coach. So the draw was not there because it's a Big 12 program that can't piece together the same experience as a Kansas or even a Texas. On a game day, a Gonzaga can't pack the arena to the likes of Big 12. So now we're going to say this five-star recruit is going to play in the Big 12 regardless of the team. But is between Kansas and Gonzaga, Kansas is absolutely going to win.
Hmm.
Because what does it matter? They're playing the same opponents. What does it matter? The transfer portal is all the same. So it doesn't matter where you spend your first year. I can always go back to Gonzaga later if I'm a bum at Kansas, if I don't get enough playing time. But by then the prestige has worn off. So at this point
I
in time,
do think that if they're in the Big 12, I think when they first move, they'll get like they probably will see some recruiting boost. But I think it will dwindle pretty quickly.
I think exactly. That's my
but they
take.
will see some.
They will see some initially because it's a power play to join the conference in itself.
Right.
But when Gonzaga turns from a 30-win team with 2 or 3 losses on the season to a 25-win team with 10 losses on the season, which is good enough for a 5 through 8 seed, depending on the conference you're in, that'll change because Kansas has already solidified they dominate in this conference. Baylor has already solidified in the past 10 years They dominate in this conference. So, why would you choose the 8 seed over the 1 or 2 seed? That's
True.
kind of where my take lies. And
Fair.
again, I see this working out the same way that Pitt and Syracuse and Louisville joining the ACC worked out. Pitt was a program of very high prestige, and they moved to the ACC for their football program. That's something that Gonzaga can't say that they're doing because they don't have a football program
Right.
worth a damn to salvage this move for. Now, Gonzaga is going to be like Pitt and enter a higher quality conference where you've got the UNCs, the Dukes, but in the Big 12. And all of a sudden, Pitt will make the tournament as they did when they were in the Big East for a handful of years, because that's what Pitt did. They were an 8 or a 9 seed, maybe a 10 seed for the first 2 or 3 years they were in the ACC. What is Pitt now? The ACC's basement. Recruiting has become a nightmare. They've gone through a number of coaches. Their best recruit in years is, got arrested a couple months ago. I'm not saying it's going to be like that for Gonzaga, but the fact of the matter is Mark Few was a very good coach in a very bad conference.
Mm-hmm.
Is Mark Few going to be the coach of Gonzaga for another 10 years? If Gonzaga goes to the Big 12, probably not.
No.
Eventually, the recruiting lust will go away. And just like the Pit and stuff like that, they'll have their relevancy and their, ooh, we're the new school in the Big 12. It's cool to come here. And eventually that will wear off. And they'll eventually become unlike Pitt, they'll probably become the Syracuse or the Louisville, which is the bubble team that gets hot at the right time. They'll make the tournament, they'll have a decent run, but you know that they're never going to win a championship. Just like I've been saying, they were never going to make the championship and win it as it stood.
Fair.
So they are going to be exactly what teams that left for higher quality to say that they were elite and failed have become.
Fair.
So Gonzaga will never be what Gonzaga is now if they leave. They know they have it best right now, but they know eventually people will stop calling or stop believing the bullshit. Right now, everybody believes, regardless of conference, they recruit really well. They have a good coach. Well, I mean, it's shown over the past 8, 9 years that when it really mattered, they weren't ready. And they won't be ready if they're playing San Francisco University, Santa Clara, twice a year. They will never be ready. They'll always be close to ready, but never ready.
All right. Well, that's we have a long episode after our bit of a break, but I feel like we got a bunch of things off, huh?
I'm tired, Sean. My voice is going to be hoarse.
Good.
I don't like this.
Anyway, yeah. Yeah, I got nothing else to say. Nope. All right.
I'm
Well,
sorry that it took a month to get another podcast out, despite the fact I'm unemployed.
life gets in the way, right? Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and catch you next time.